So, okay.
Yeah. So Rabbi say we started discussing Hilchos Tefila. The Olam hears me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, now we hear you. Yeah.
So Lamaisa, we were talking about things which you're allowed to do before you daven Shachris. We spoke that a person should not also l'adam misasik b'tzrachav. A person shouldn't go get involved in his different necessities, different things that he needs to do before davening. As well, a person should not set out on a journey in the morning until he davens Shachris first. He shouldn't go up and go to his friend's house to go greet him. It's not appropriate before davening. If you see him, you could tell him something, say it differently. Say tzafra de mare tav, meaning don't say the normal way. Tzafra de mare tav means in Aramaic means good morning, sir. Instead of saying shalom aleichem in Lashon Kodesh. So whatever it is, do some type of change. Now, as well, we spoke about eating before davening and drinking before davening. Interesting enough, even learning, it's also when it comes to time of davening. When?
What about the Hasidim Rishonim? They used to learn an hour before davening, no?
So the only time it's a problem, the only good question, the only time it's an issue is if you are learning privately and you daven privately. However, if you plan on going to shul and you always go every day, you're in shul 7 o'clock, that's your minyan. So we're not concerned that maybe your learning will push off davening and you're going to be over on Zman Kriya Shema and Zman Tefila. Because you're always ragil to go to shul at a certain time, so then you're allowed to learn up until the time of davening. If you're teaching other people, you're a magid shir and you're giving a shir to other people, then even if you don't go to the shul every day, you're davening privately, you're also allowed to learn, because if you're not going to learn now, people are not going to learn. If you don't give the shir is going to be in this battle, people are not going to learn. So therefore, mitzad the schus of the rabbim davar gadolhu, and therefore you should continue learning even up until the time of Zman Kriya Shema and Tefila. You shouldn't stop learning. As well, interesting, it's mutter to go into a bathhouse and to take a haircut before Shachris. These are similar activities you shouldn't be doing before Shachris. However, Chazal were not goizer on this, only samach before Mincha. Because you shouldn't do this before Mincha time, because that's when people usually go and take a haircut or go into the bathhouse in those days. But in the morning, this is not something regular. People don't go early in the morning to the barber shop before davening. So therefore, Chazal were not goizer any gezeda about this, about taking a haircut or going to the merchatz. But other work, which is common to do before Shachris, a person shouldn't do in the morning. He should first daven. If he has to, he has no choice, he should at least say brachas and Kriya Shema. Now, what happens if someone needs to go on the road early, whether he's traveling by foot or with a wagon or with a boat, and the group that he's going with is not waiting for him till after Neitz Chama, till sunrise, to daven Shemona Esrei. And if he's going to go on the trip, he's not going to be able to stand up and daven. He's going to be traveling in a wagon. He can't stand on the wagon. He has to sit. So therefore, he could daven earlier, already from Amad HaShacher. From Amad HaShacher, one could daven, even though, remember, l'chatchila, you're not supposed to daven by Amad HaShacher. By Dwan, you're supposed to wait till sunrise. Now, we want to go into furthermore into other dinim in Hilchos Tefila. A person who davens needs to prepare the place that he davens. It should be an appropriate place for davening. He should prepare his clothing, his body, and his machshava. So there's makom, there's your begadim, there's your guf, and there's your machshava. 4 inyanim that a person should make hachana and prepare before davening. What type of makom is appropriate to daven? A person shouldn't stand on his bed, on a chair, on a stool, or any high place. It's better to daven in a low place because mamakim krasich Hashem. There's no such a thing as person showing gaiva that he's tall and he's haughty before Hashem. You call out from the depths to Hashem. Obviously, if someone's not feeling well, Rahman al-Tzan, an older person, they can stay on their bed and daven. As well, a shliach tzibur who needs to be in a high spot. Let's say people need to hear him to daven, so he needs to be in a high bima. So it's not an issue because his kavana is not to be like stand haughtily, but his kavana is that people should hear his voice. Today, however, the minig that in Shulchan Aruch it brings down, the minig is that the shliach tzibur stands lower than the rest of the Beis HaKnesses. We don't see it in our shuls today, but in old shuls, the place where the chazan daven was lower than the rest of the shul, because mamakim krasicha Hashem. That was a minig. That's why we always say in Shulchan Aruch and halacha that a chazan is called a yored lifnei hateva. He goes down before the teva, before the Aron Kodesh. What does it mean yored? He goes down because the place where the shliach tzibur would stand was lower than the rest of the shul. Now, when is this a problem? Is when the spot, the height is a gimel tvachim high, over 9 inches. But less than that, it's not nicker that is any difference. If the area is over 3 tvachim, however, it's also wide, more than dalet amis, each direction, the length and the width is dalet amis. It's like a platform. It's like a stage. A platform for itself is like a different floor. It's like you went upstairs to the second floor. You're not allowed to daven on the second floor because I'm davening in a high place. No, every floor relative to itself. And the second floor you're allowed to daven, the third floor you're allowed to daven. Just on that floor you're davening, you're not supposed to put yourself on a high chair, on a high spot. So a platform, which is over dalet al dalet, dalet amis of the dalet amis, is like a separate area for itself. It's like a second floor. It's like an attic. So we don't consider it as if you're davening in a higher spot than the rest of the room. What happens if someone's working and he's on a tree, on top of a tree, and he's working? Let's say he's cutting olives, or he's cutting the dates, the figs down. So they're allowed to daven over there. If it came the time of davening, they could stop and daven over there. It's a makom gavoya. No, since they went to do their work, it's as if they went up to a second floor. Now, the reason why Chazal mentioned afke a dap of an olive tree or a fig tree is because these trees, it's difficult to come down, difficult to go up and down, and a person who does that's going to have to stop working. So Chazal didn't obligate a person to come down. But regular trees, a person shouldn't be davening on a tree. He should be coming off the tree and davening on the ground. What's he davening on top of a tree? It's not a makom cover to daven.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Can I choose to pray outdoors rather than indoors?
We're going to learn about it. Let's give another minute, and we're going to discuss this very important question that you're asking. Give another minute. A person should also open up windows and doors of the shul He should have doorways and windows in the shul facing towards Yishalayim. Like windows that, not to the street, but windows like higher, that a person could look up and see the sky. And by seeing that, he looks klape shamayim, and that brings a certain humbleness in his heart.
It's in Daniel, I think.
Now, even though in general a person should be looking down when he davens, he shouldn't be looking around when he davens. But when someone needs to have kavana, he could look up the shamayim, and to get kavana by looking up the shamayim. Now, the next halacha we come to in Hilchos Tefila is the din that you were bringing up. A person should daven only in a house, in a structure, not in an open field.
What about all these minyanim we used to have? We had through the whole 2.5 months that are outside. My backyard, I davened in my backyard. The other guys davened in their backyards, and we hadn't made a minyan. It's unfortunate. We couldn't go into one house. It was could have gone to shul already.
It's a good question. I don't know the answer, but l'chora, I guess
Somebody else was davening that way.
that's a
No?
fact situation. You had no choice, right?
There was no choice. Otherwise, I would daven yechidus. It was either
It
or.
could also be that it's not like a field. You have gates around, you're in a backyard. You're not like suddenly in an open area.
Yeah, right.
You're in some sort of, you're surrounded
It's
by.
still, yeah.
But
it's
we do find that we see that people daven, make a mincha somewhere and a ma'ariv, or even a whole year, if need be, people do a tefillah like that. So I don't know you have to see how far this din goes, but it could be tefillah b'tzibur is more important than this din. So it would be doiche this din. I don't know. It's a good
Rabbi,
point. But we see a whole year that we're not makbid in case of tefillah b'tzibur, at least in a temporary basis to do such a thing. People go somewhere on the way, they're traveling, or they make a minyan on the side of the road, or they go somewhere chalamayid. People are makel with this idea when there's no choice.
Look at by the Koisel. By the Koisel, people open place. Huge open place.
Right. But again, the Koisel has some sort of, I guess there's walls on a few sides, right?
If you go underneath the Koisel on the left side over there, it looks like a house. But the whole Koisel itself is like open place, people davening.
I'll tell you something interesting. I just saw yesterday, a Sikha from the Rebbe, which he was discussing this halacha. It was, yesterday was Tesvav Sivan, was a day commemorating when the Frierdiker Rebbe was arrested in Russia. He was arrested, and later on, he stayed until Yubei Tammuz. He was finally freed. So Tesvav Sivan was the day he was arrested. Now he wrote a diary about his time in his arrest and his imprisonment with vivid details. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes, he was an unbelievable writer, the Frierdiker Rebbe. Describes every moment what was happening and his feelings and his heart and the whole scene. So in the beginning, he describes how he came into the prison when he was arrested, and they told him to go down a certain hall. And sort of like by mistake, he went down a different hallway. And when he was going down this hallway, he realized he made a mistake, and he was thinking about it was very nervous, going around in this building and in the jail. Why did he go and make this wrong turn? So he thought to himself that he had one time went with his father when he was younger. They had went away, maybe it was in the summer, and they went for dacha, and they went away. And the Rebbe Rashab and the Frierdiker Rebbe were out somewhere there, and they wanted to daven. So the Rebbe Rashab, the Frierdiker Rebbe says over that his father took him to daven like in a cave, like to go and not to be in a sudden open area, like the halacha we're learning now. Like the Gemara says in Brachis, a person shouldn't daven in a field, an open place. So they went to Dafka look for a secluded place where they could daven. And when he came there, they were davening. So his father told him, the Rebbe Rashab told the Frierdiker Rebbe that the reason why we had to come to this place, because this place is waiting that Yidden should come and daven in this spot, should say brachas here. So the Frierdiker Rebbe thought about this while after he was arrested and he went on a different hallway in this prison, that why was he going down this hallway? Why did he have to get lost? Because there's something, he needed to say some divrei Torah here, say some tehillim, some things while he's going to the spot to be mavar and refine that spot where he was going. Something just came to mind by me.
Rabbi,
Yes.
we see that Yitzhak Avinu says, Nasuach Basadeh, when he went to pray, and also the Arizal, you say, Friday night, let's go out to the field.
That's a good question. I mean, the Arizal, I would say it was Kabbalah Shabbos. So Kabbalah Shabbos wasn't Shemana Esrei. When we're talking over here, it's Shemana Esrei. So Kabbalah Shabbos is a special thing to go out to the field to greet Shabbos in the fields. That was a unique thing. We do something very slightly similar. We ensure we turn around like to greet Shabbos. We turn around to the door to the field and to greet in Shabbos. We don't actually go out. But the reason you're right, actually went out, and we find the Chazal that they went actually out to the field. But l'chora, that was only for Kabbalah Shabbos, not for Shemana Esrei itself. Where there they came back and if they wanted to daven Shemana Esrei, they came and found a secluded place. Yeah.
The halacha we just said is betzibur or beyochid?
L'chora, it's both. It's
Because Yitzchak was one man. He wasn't a minion. So he had no choice to daven basada.
There was no best medrash either. There was no shul.
No, he was learning with Avram Avinu. They not learn outside. He learned with his father all the time.
Yeah.
Esav was in the field with the bon hour and catching the animals. Yitzchak was sitting with Avram and learned there.
No,
But
yeah.
then down to Mincha, Yitzchak went to the Sada to daven. So I'm saying it was Yochid.
I don't know. This could maybe bring out the point that we said earlier, that in temporary times you could daven in the field. It's a good question about Yitzchak, because Lamaisa Yitzchak went to bring back. Yitzchak was sent by Avram to bring back Hagar to Avram, and it came time Mincha, so I needed to find. If he didn't have a place to daven, that's where he davened. Like, obviously, this is not going to be ma'akiv. This halacha that you need to have shouldn't daven a sada is not ma'akiv. If you have no choice, you can daven in the sada. Let's say it's going to come the time you're going to miss shachris. There's mana shachris. So we don't say miss shachris and don't. It's not something which is ma'akiv the tefila. You definitely chatchila should make sure to set up your davening in such a way. But if you're traveling and you can't. There's nothing you could do about it.
We just learned in Pirkei Avos that who was it that they were walking around and he stopped to daven and they continue. Kedai lachuv be'atzmecha.
Mm-hmm.
So you are davening by yourself in the Sada. You could see from here.
Yeah. Now, a person, more about the mokim you should daven, you should also try to daven with a minyan. Ishtadel Adam l'spalo beis hakneset matzibur. So even if you can make a minyan in your own house, but for two reasons it's better to go to a shul. First of all, number one, there are more people in the shul. B'reiv am hadas melech. Number two, a makim kedusha like a beis hakneses where they constantly are saying shiris v'shvachis to Hashem. So the pasuk says l'shmaya el harina ve'latfila. That where should one daven in a makom of rina? We're in a place where they're singing tishpachish to Hashem. That's the place to daven. So since it's a place with constantly people daven, this is the place to daven if you could. However, if someone cannot come to daven, he's weak, even if he's not a choila, but he's weak, he can't come to shul, and he can't make a minyan by himself in his house, he should daven the same time that the tzibur is davening. Because the time that the tzibur davens is a eis ratzon. It's a eis ratzon l'mayla, and his tefila is not pushed away. Even though it's not miskabel v'ratzon, as if you're davening in a shul with a minyan, but still in all, there's a special thing to daven the same time that tzibur is davening, even if you're not with them. The same thing, people who live in settlements. Very often those days, people lived in little villages because of their parnasa. They had to live. They didn't live in the city, and they didn't have a minyan. They didn't have a minyan a whole year. They would only come to the big city for Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. So what would they do? They would daven Shachris and Mincha at the time that the Kehila davens, wherever the shul davens.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
the person is married. Should he be makpi on himself not to pray in the same room that his wife is in?
As long as she dressed sneas, there's no problem. Oh, mitzad the inyan of a mechitza? No. Bichlal, the concept of a mechitza is only when you have a makom kavua for tefillah. Meaning a person should not be facing women when they're davening, but the concept of that we have to set up a formal mechitza is when you're setting up kaveh, a formal makom for tefillah. Right? Let's say you're davening in a porch minyan and there are women are walking on the street. So obviously you should not be facing the women. But we don't have any chiv to go start setting up mechitzas on the streets. Interesting, Moshe Feinstein has a tshuva where he talks about if a woman sits in the back of the shul. And let's say she's collecting tzedakah or something, and she sits all the way back of the shul. So he says that in Europe, they always had that. I didn't see the tshuva recently. It was many years ago, but if I recall, what he says is that in Europe, there was always an older lady would sit in the back of the shul and would collect money. She needed tzedakah. She would collect tzedakah. That wasn't an issue. The issue was when women come for davening. Well, there's a few women there, more than one woman. Then it becomes an issue. An interesting thing I heard, there are parts of the world where during the summer it never gets dark. It's an entire day. The sun never sets. It maybe goes down lower, but it never completely sets. So it's always day. And the shaila is, what do you do with this mani tefillos in these places? So I don't know if there are any people, any Yidden officially from Yidden that live in such places. Maybe there are certain shluchim in certain parts of the world in certain parts of Russia maybe, that actually live in such places. It could be, I don't know, I'm not sure. In Alaska, there are parts of Alaska which are like that. Not where the shliach lives in Anchorage. It's in another part of Alaska. The question is, what do you do in these places? So I heard from a neighbor of mine, Rabbi Lippe Brennan. So Lippe Brennan told me when he was a bacher, he was sent on. He was, I think, the second group that went on shlichus during the summer as bachrim, Merka shlichus, to go to Alaska. They were going to search out Yidden and to do miftzayim there during the summer. And they had this question: we might be coming to certain cities in Alaska that in those areas during the summer there's no dark. So what should we do? When do we daven Ma'ariv? When do we daven Mincha? What is this manim? So they sent the Shaila, the Rebbe, they asked the Shaila to the Rebbe's secretary, Rabbi Chodakov, and the answer came back that you should daven exactly the way we daven here. All the times of the minyanim. We daven here 9:30 shachris, daven 9:30 shachris. 3:15, all the zmanim the way it's here. Similar to what we're learning over here, that when you don't have a minyan, you should daven in the time that the kehilas are davening. So over here, they don't have any kehila in Alaska. At that point, there was no kehila in the entire Alaska. So they are, wherever they left, the place they left New York. They live in New York and they left 770. That was the place they left. The Makim Shiyatza Misham was 770. So the Rebbe had told them, this is not recorded, so it's just an Eid Echad, but this is the way he says the story, that it was the Rebbe told to keep the Zmanim, to keep it 770. Daven the way the Tefila is daven over here. Now, by the way, Ma'ariv, you cannot daven early. If you're not davening with a minyan, you're not supposed to daven Ma'ariv early. Because the only reason why Chazal were makel that you could daven Ma'ariv early, because it's difficult to go and gather the tzibur back again from Ma'ariv by night. So after Mincha, if people leave, they're not going to get back together. A lot of shuls out of town, if people leave after Mincha, they're not coming back for Ma'ariv. There's not going to be any minyan for Ma'ariv. No one's coming back. So in those places, they daven Ma'ariv after Mincha because it's too hard to gather everyone later. And they have what to rely upon. However, if someone's davening privately by himself, he's not supposed to rely on that, and he's supposed to daven Ma'ariv after Tzeitzei Kichav night. So when you're in a place, you happen to be in a place where there's no minyan. Let's say you're in quarantine and you can't be in a place with a minyan. So you should follow whatever the shul that you daven in or close to you is davening. Follow their zmanim. It's important to be kevei zmanim for tefillah.
Rabbi, why is it different on Shabbos that you can pray before nightfall, Ma'ariv?
Well, you mean for a private person or in general?
Private.
Shabbos is a different idea because it's a mitzvah to be makabel Shabbos early. So, according to halacha, it's better to daven Ma'ariv early on Friday night. Hasidim don't do that based on Kabbalah, based on the Arizal. But if you look in halacha, even the Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch clearly writes, it's a mitzvah to people daven Ma'ariv early. That was a common minig. That was a common minig in Ashkenaz to daven Ma'ariv early. Because they wanted to be Makabel Shabbos early. That was an inyan of being Moisef Mechayel HaKodesh. However, it's during the week, so if you're davening with a minyan, so you could daven Ma'ariv early. It's hard for them to gather together a minyan. However, if you're davening b'yichidus, you're davening privately, you should wait to daven bizman. And by the way, another interesting halacha: if someone for some reason missed the minyan, he couldn't daven with the minyan, there's still an inyan that he should go daven in a shul. If he could make it and daven in a shul, like we said earlier on, that a shul is l'shmaya el arina ve'latfila. It's a place where the rina, the praise of Hashem is heard, the songs of Hashem are heard, and has a person's tefillas are more heard when he davens in a shul, if he can do it. Now, this halacha that person should daven, if he's davening at home, should daven the same time as the tzibur davens, is only in a case for, it's only a mitzvah and a muvchar. It's not halacha. He doesn't have to. If he wants, he could daven early. Let's say he feels weak and he wants to eat breakfast. He could daven earlier before the time of the shachris that the kehillah is davening. But if someone's in shul, he's not supposed to daven before the minyan. You should not daven before the Shliach Tzibur starts. You should wait till the Shliach Tzibur comes to Gal Yisrael and daven with the minyan. There's an isser to daven earlier. Unless you see that the minyan is going to, the Zman Tefila is going to pass. And therefore, and because they're saying a lot of piyutim and they're singing negunim, the kehila, or for some other reason that you need to go, let's say, you need to go to Parnasa, you need to go to work. So then you could daven before. But in general, a person has to be knowing not he should wait and not daven before the tzibur. You're missing out the chance of daven tefillah with tzibur. Now, someone who has a shul in his city, but he doesn't enter the shul in his city. He always davens at home. He's called a shachan ra, a bad neighbor. What type of neighbor are you? You're a neighbor to the shul. You have a shul in your city. Go to the shul. And it causes bad things. It causes for, just like you exiled yourself from the shul, so him and his children will be exiled from their place where they live. They'll have to leave their city because they left Hashem's house. They're going to be left in the city. So that someone has a shul, he should go to frequent the shul. He shouldn't decide that I'm not part of the kehila, I'm not part of the tzibur. I do my own thing, I'm davening in the house. Anyone who wakes up early and is always early to shul and stays late and to Ma'ariv and stays late in shul, he's zoiche fa'ariches yamim. If someone has 2 shuls in the city, he should go to the shul which is further, because he has schar pesiyas yesh. There's schar for how much effort you made to go to the shul. Yeah. Now, it's a mitzvah in general. A person is not supposed to run in general. A person is supposed to be miyushev. A chacham, he walks slowly, carefully. He doesn't run. He's not running and rushing all around. That's not something of not a chacham. The Rambam writes that a chacham, if you watch a chacham, you could see he's a chacham by looking at how he behaves, how he walks, how he sleeps, how he eats. It's differently than other people. However, when it comes to shul, it's a mitzvah to run to shul and other mitzvahs. Like it says on the pasuk, nirdefa ladas Hashem. However, it's only till you get into shul, but not in the shul itself. You don't run around in the shul. Not run to the mizrach wall to go get your seat. Even on Shabbos, we know you're not supposed to run on Shabbos like you do during the week. But on Shabbos, you're allowed to go for a mitzvah. For a mitzvah, you're allowed to go to shul, you're allowed to run. When you leave shul, you should go slowly. Don't run.
Right,
Don't take big steps because you're not trying to run away from shul. Unless you have to go to do a mitzvah. You want to go run to do a mitzvah quickly to come back to shul, then it's fine. You want to come quicker back to shul. Or you're going to learn. So you're going to Beis HaKnesses, the Beis HaMedrash. You're going to Koilel, to Yeshiva. You're going to a shir that you have. It's an adrabah. It's a good thing. A person's supposed to leave Beis HaKnesses and go to Beis HaMedrash. Now, in shul, another halacha in shul, a person's allowed to spit in shul. In the Beis HaMikdash, you are not allowed to. It's not covered. In the shul, you're allowed, but you should wipe it with your feet. It shouldn't be sitting there in the shul. It's not kavadik. So we're not demanding the same level of cover like the Beis HaMikdash, but you cannot leave it megula revealed. Shulchan Aruch even gives you an eitzah. It's actually comes from Sefer Chasidim from Yehuda Chassid. that you should, if you want to make sure that you shouldn't have to spit out often in shul, you should chew on a certain sweet root, which is called licorice, which means to be licorice. Chewing on it, and it will help you that you shouldn't have to spit. Now, there's an inyan, a person should get up early to be zoichet, to be part of the first 10 in shul. Meaning the first 10 that you daven with them, not just them come to shul, that you're davening with the first 10 in minyan. And even 100 people come after you, you still get schar more than everyone else, because you were from the first 10. It says in Shulchan Aruch, interesting halacha, that it's an inyan based on the Zohar. It's best a person should come together to shul with 10 people as a group. This, we don't see people being naig this way, but there is such a concept of people coming to shul as a group. Yeah. So, Lamaisa, that's the din in Menegei the shul. Now, what about a kviyus being kevei makim? Again, remember we spoke before, there's a number of things four things a person should prepare hachana for davening. The first thing was makim, then was his garments, his begadim, his guf, his body, and then his machshava. So we're still involved in makim. We spoke about not standing on a high place, not going into a field, davening with a minyan in a shul, all parts of makim. We're still continuing with makim. A person should also be keveya of makim for his tefila, which he should keep to that place. And we find Avram Avinu did the same thing. It says, "Vayashkim Avram Avayker." After Sedoim, Avram Avinu tained with Hashem and davened for the people Sedoim. Hashem didn't, Lamaisa, he didn't have what to defend them anymore. So he left. In the morning, he woke up. Vayashkim Avram Avayker El Hamakim Hasha'amad Sham. He went back to the very same spot that he stood the day before. So it does not mean only you should go to the same shul. You should have a certain shul you go to. Not every day you switch around shuls. But more than that, in the very shul itself, you should have a makom kavua where you daven. Now, by the way, it doesn't mean literally you have to be mamish in that same exact space. You have around dalat amis, let's say 8 feet around, that whole area is still considered makom kavua. Because someone standing in your spot, you don't have to go and push them out. You have dalat amis, anywhere in the dalat amis around your spot is considered your spot. And even if someone davens at home, someone needs to daven at home, sometimes daven at home, we should make a certain spot in his house. This is his place where he davens. He has a certain spot in his house where he davens. He's kevei and makim l'tefila. In this way, the family he won't be bothered. He has a proper place. This is his davening place. This is where he is.
When I was a kid in Kfar Chabad many years ago, there was big oidim, big chassidim, they daven by Hilchos.
Yeah.
I never daven in one place. They used to walk in the shul back and forth and thinking like, so what about makom kavua? They did not know the halacha. They didn't do it because they're confused. It's just like the way they're thinking. They walk in the shul back and forth.
We have to remember that the whole concept of makim tefila is to help kavana. Essentially, this is to help your kavana. So sometimes if someone knows that other ways to have a kavana, they might have to do other ways. In general, for most people, that's the way. But if someone wants to have a real tefillah, like the Alter Chassidim had, it's a different thing, I'm sure that some of them did sit in one place. Not all of them walked around, right?
They had a makom kavua, but with the talis filling bag, it will stay there. But they are like back and forth.
Well, we have an example of Levi Yitzhak and Berdichev, who used to start in one corner of the shul and end up in the other.
Yeah, good point.
I heard that.
And
I
I'll
heard
tell you, that's the person's makom
But
kavua.
that's-
The person davens every day and moves around, so that is his makom kavua. It doesn't say anywhere that your makom kavua has to be in a certain amount of feet. If this person, his makom is a certain area around, that's where he needs to walk around when he's doing his meditation. So that's his makom tefillah,
Didn't they say about the Alter Rebbe? He used to like roll around in the shul. I'm sure he had a makom kavua in shul, the Alter Rebbe, but still he was.
They say about one of the children of the Tzemach Tzedek that he would like the story of David was saying about the Yitzhak Berditchev that he would start in one and come to another room. There was one. He was during davening. One of the children, I think it was the Maharil, the second to the oldest son of the Tzemach Tzedek. I think it was him, and maybe it was one of the other brothers. Maybe it was Liadi. I don't recall. He would daven. He would daven. He would daven all over, and he would daven for a long time. And the minyan couldn't handle it. It was too much for them. But he was davening for the Amud for his father, for the Tzemach Tzedek, during the first year, during the year of Avelus. So they made so many conditions with him. Alamaisi, he wasn't able to keep to it. He wasn't able to follow the rules.
What we
Davening
saying
is
before, man.
kavana. The main thing in davening is kavana. So all these different dinim are here to help kavana. So if for some reason a person has kavana and it's in a different method, there's room for leniencies. We have to remember that Tefila is about davening to Hashem. It's a real thing. You feel that someone you're really talking to, you're really davening to Hashem. So we have to remember that all the halachas around it are just to help us get to the ruchniistic aspect of it. It's not itself the tefillah. Standing in one spot is not tefillah. This is just a hachana for tefillah. It should help you concentrate. You should be in one spot, in one place, not move around to keep certain...
So, Rabbi, a situation where a person is in a city with one shul and Has v'Shalom, there's talking going on all the time, it drives him mad. He should pray home?
Yeah, in such a case, you should daven at home. But it's an extreme case, but if you can't concentrate, and he davens at home, yeah. We have to remember that, you could come in here, maybe Kibbutz Torah and Kedusha and Shul. I remember when I was a Bachar in Yeshiva in Montreal, there was the famous mashpia of Wolf Greenglass was a mashpia there. And the Wolf would every day, he wouldn't daven with the minyan, he would daven at home privately, would daven for a lengthy period of time, daven to Hashem. It wasn't something he could do in the shul. There's a lot of noise, there's tzedakah collectors, there's Kaddish being said, there are people talking, there's different things happening. It's a train station. He wanted to daven for a long time and daven to Hashem for a few hours. So this was something that he needed to concentrate and do at home, privately. But he would come to shul early and he would stand quietly in the minyan and he would listen to all the amens and everything from beginning to the ending of davening. And not only that, he would make sure, while he was there, to shushka people, make sure everyone's quiet and they're listening. And he would stand there quiet and listen to the entire davening. After he heard that, then he went home and he went to daven by himself. So that was something, especially in the previous generation, That was a hallmark of Hasidei Chabad. Today, for some reason, things changed a bit, but that's what things were once upon a time. Was davening was of utmost importance, was the Kavanah davening. Now, even people that couldn't daven during the week would take more time to daven on Shabbos because they don't have to go to work, so you have more time to concentrate on davening. A person should try at least to think about what he's saying in davening. And there was a minig by Hasidim that we know it's difficult to concentrate in the entire davening, to pay attention. So they would daven parts of davening. Like, let's say they would say, okay, I can't do everything, but I'm going to concentrate and look every word, milos, until this in the spot. And then they make a little knetch, a little bend in the paper, and in the next davening, daven a little bit more with kavanah. And every day daven more and more parts of davening with kavanah. It's hard for someone to have kavanah throughout the entire davening. The Shulchan Aruch mentions many times that these days people do not have kavanah like they had in the past. People are much more distracted today. We're all ADD. We don't know. It's hard for us to concentrate on anything too long, you know. Today's days, they say in schools and teachers, you know, and when you want to give a lecture, you have to change the subject every 2 minutes because you're going to lose the crowd, you know. You have to say another joke, another story. It's getting difficult to give a shir anymore today's day. People say he didn't say enough jokes, you know.
Right.
You have to keep on changing the style of the learning and things like that. So I'm not saying we have to give in to everything that people want. You know, the question is how far do you bend down and how far do you require people to lift themselves up to the Torah? But definitely to a certain extent. So Lamaisa, I hope that maybe next week we'll be able to already learn in Shul. I don't know.
Ezrat Hashem.
Yeah, let's hope there'll be a
Halavai.
Alavai, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Listen, we could still do Zoom for those that we could do Zoom for the rest of the year. People that can't make it to Shul, it's people could always connect. Maybe Zoom we learned that there's some merits to Zoom. People that can't attend, they can't make it to the Shul for some reason for a shir.
Sure.
They could always tune in via Zoom. So they don't have to wait for to go on the website and see it later. They could participate live. But those who could come, could come. It's something to think about.
Should all be in Yerushalayim by this time.
That's right.
I was reading Kfar Chabad, Rabbi Landau Alav Shalom, the father. He was giving Ashgocha on certain fish in Alaska that only 2 months of the year there's a certain fish coming there, or 2 weeks of the year. Specialist fish is very expensive. So he sent a mashgiach to take care, to make sure that they're catching only that kind of fish. The problem over there is 24 hours is day. It's like from 12 o'clock at night to 12:30 or 1 o'clock to 1:30. This half an hour, there's like a certain bridge, you're standing on it and you see the difference a little bit, like a little bit dark to white, but it's still light. So this mashgiach, you know, is there all the time. And you need to dive in Shachis Menachem Arev, very difficult with this kind of hours. And he met an Israeli guy over there. So he said, let's put tefillin. So it was 12 o'clock at night, but it's still day. So he put tefillin on it. Then it was 12:35. It's still on the bridge, you know, they staying over there, right? So let's put tefillin. He said, what happened? He said, now it's Monday. And tekach have. This over now changes from Sunday to Monday. Although it's a day, you barely see a night. And also, I was reading about the camp in Moscow in the summer. But Shabbos is like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, or very, very late, something like that. So they go to sleep, they wake up in the morning, first thing they're making Havdalah.
Before you eat breakfast, you make Havdalah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, good stories. Shakoyach.
Anybody know anyone in Las Vegas?
Las Vegas, you have the Shliach there, Harlig.
Right. Do you know him?
I know. I have a son of his in our kollel.
Oh, no kidding. Okay, because I'm hoping to go there tomorrow or Wednesday. I don't know, maybe
Don't go with any money. You lose it. You lose it.
you know something. I haven't been in a casino in many years, and I'm not
It's not only the casino. You walk out from the airport, you already have the slot.
I'm not going there for that.
He's being very careful, social distance from the gambling machines.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
unless of course they're wearing a mask. You know. You're right. No, I appreciate it very much. Anyway, but you don't know him personally. I spoke to him today. Sounds like a very nice guy.
Okay. So you're gonna go check out the Chabad house?
Right. Yeah, that'll probably be the second thing I do.
Are
First,
they open? Are they open?
yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure of that, but
You gotta make sure they're open. What's the story in Las Vegas?
well, they just opened. I think yesterday.
Okay, so they opened. Okay.
But that's not why. That's not why I'm going here.
You could study on Zoom with us.
Right. Well, that's what I intend to do.
The different words is going to be 6 o'clock by evening by you. By us is 9 o'clock. By you is 6 o'clock in the evening.
Yes. Is it 3 hours or 2
3
hours?
hours difference. Yes.
Oh, so it's the same as California.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for telling me that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Safe trip.
Well, all right. Listen, I'll send you a
Safe
report.
Shalom, Bayachem Shalom.
Amen.
And I want to wish a good night to everyone.